Okay, guys, welcome back to the Business of Music Breakdown, the bomb with Lucas de Beer, myself, Helmut Meyer, and today we have a very special lady in the studio, Lynette de Jager, classically trained, full-time contemporary violinist, singer-songwriter. Welcome, and we look forward to discussing the industry a little bit with you.
Absolutely. As Helmut said, welcome. And this whole podcast is geared towards and made for people in the industry like yourselves. And the whole idea is to share information, share our own experiences to motivate one another and to build a community. So my first question, Lynette, is just to kick it off with, how did you start off, or how did you get involved in the business of music?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I think it's a fantastic initiative you've got. So basically how I started off in the music industry was my love for music from a young age. Grew up on a farm, and I discovered my grandfather's violin in the cupboard, and from there we had it restored. I took lessons and had music at school, studied, and then it became my profession.
Wow. So it really came from childhood, discovering your granddad's violin.
I was going to joke and say it wasn't an electric violin. Because this is going to be my question straight on. I mean, you perform both on electric violin and almost a classical on acoustic violin.
Depending on where it's going to be.
And depending on the type of gig and venue and performance.
Absolutely, yes.
How is it to make a living of playing such a specific instrument? I mean, and what we mean is most people that we speak to, they're playing guitar, they play piano, whatever, but, as a violinist, tell us a little bit more about the reality of...
I thoroughly enjoy it. Music, especially violin and gigs, has taken me to places where I expect, never to see performing at the bottom of a waterfall. And people usually don't expect a classically trained musician or a classical instrument to play contemporary or modern music. They find it quite unusual. Yeah. So it's been quite a journey of learning and experiencing and growing. So I really enjoy what I do.
Just off the cuff, something that comes to mind that's a challenge maybe, playing a classical instrument as a solo performing musician. What's something that comes to mind?
Probably people's preconceived idea that sometimes they want contemporary music, but they think it's just going to be like heavy classical. So sometimes that's a challenge, but if you have got a good marketing platform, people can see what you do and what you have to offer. Then that changes the ball game.
Oh, so that's good stuff. If you have a good marketing platform, because we've helped you to, and we'll get to that a little bit later. We helped you to release a couple of singles, and in your press release, I was like, "Wow, Lynette has played many weddings." Yes. I think at the point it was 330 weddings.
Yeah. At
that point, I don't know what's the score now.
Next is going to be 352 this weekend coming.
350. Yeah. Oh my word. So here's my question. 352 weddings. How did you establish yourself in that setting? And why do you think people keep on booking you?
So you would be surprised, word of mouth, that you can deliver a good product, that you have good clientele rapport. So word of mouth is definitely a big thing, and your social media is also a very strong platform. And then business cards, so there are different ways, but for the wedding industry, getting part of the vendors group and building your image up in a sense that people want you at their wedding because you can add value. It's a one day in your life experience which has to be perfect, so you cannot really compromise or as a client not have confidence in who you are booking. So with that comes a responsibility, but I think it's mainly word of mouth, I would say, good marketing and clientele relations.
And just out of interest, and add on to the question, how long has it taken you to establish you and to get to this 352 gigs at weddings?
It has taken time, definitely, yeah. So I started when I was at school playing at weddings, and then also your venues you play at, and just always, yeah, like I said, emphasis on good relations, yeah, and trust.
So, Lynette, the head-on COVID-19, how has that affected? I mean, let's just be blunt about it. Everything has kind of shut down. And we're living in a world that's stranger, where the truth is stranger than fiction. How is that affected? Specifically, I mean, I'm thinking of weddings as one of your main sources of income, right? How did COVID-19 affect
So
you
it
as a business?
affected, yeah, the whole industry, individuals, people who are musicians who've left the industry, moving into different entrepreneurial division. For me, it did affect me, but I decided there's nothing I can do about it. I can just make the best of the situation. I'm not the only one in the boat. There are so many people out there. So I had a positive mentality. I tried to think out of the box. How am I going to find a solution to this? And just take it day for day, step by step, implementing the time now which we had on our hands, having lockdown at home, practicing, trying out new ideas and so forth.
And just maybe advice for the listeners, how did you actually survive with your income stream, I'm very sure, having been affected?
Yeah, I had to think definitely out of the box quite dramatically. And then I made lists of what can I do, what can I not do. Obviously, you cannot perform at a wedding. And also adhering to COVID regulations and so forth, I decided to go to funeral parlors. I went to them and I offered my services at no charge. So I then would have people contact me asking me to play at a loved one's funeral, either on Zoom. Then I would go, and because I didn't ask for money, I got so many donations in return, more than what I would have. Yes, really? So I was incredibly blessed just because I went out to bless people. God in return, I believe, had given me so much more, and I could help people. I could bring encouragement through the music. Incredible. And also just healing. So I didn't go out with the mentality to make money. I went out with a positive mentality to enrich and bring hope in a difficult time.
That's such a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Bringing hope in a time such as this.
Yeah.
And the beautiful offering of the beautiful sound, that's something that a violin and the hope that I would think it brings.
Yeah,
and what I especially enjoyed, another story I can tell, is I would set up outside in our yard my sound equipment, and then I would just play for the neighborhood, just play music, and people would arrive in their cars and they would park next to the street, and they would bring their dogs in the car with their coffee flasks, and then I would just stand on the lawn and I would give a whole street performance. And from there, such an incredible spin-off of business came once lockdown was lifted. I had so much work.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, just using what I could in that time, just literally to uplift.
Wow.
So from the yard to the stage.
It's
what an inspiring story.
So inspiring, and it remains a stage. You created your own stage.
Yes.
But I love what you said earlier. You had a positive mentality and you thought out of the box. I mean, goodness gracious, that is out of the box.
Yeah. And this is the one thing that I think is on the table now for all performing musicians, for musicians as a whole,
Precisely.
is to come up with something out of the box.
Something
and I think
unique.
Something unique.
Something you wouldn't usually expect. Oh, wow, someone's standing at the street. Or when the times were in the mornings for that people could exercise, I would go and set up my equipment next to the one of the roads leading up to the mountain, and I would play music for the people being able to exercise
Oh my word, that's
in that short
fantastic.
time span. Yeah.
Now, you are venturing into the world of exploring becoming a singer, songwriter. You write beautiful music as well. And you sing beautifully as well.
Thank you.
And we'll put the links once again. The listeners can, underneath this, we'll share the links. You can click on it. You can go and listen to Lynette's music. But what has that journey been like for you? Maybe moving away from an instrument only towards singing and writing.
Yeah. So both singing, writing, and playing an instrument has been a journey in conjunction. So it's not been separate. So at school, I loved composing and writing music. In 2011, I entered the Ottikafir National Singing Songwriting Competition.
Yeah.
And I was chosen part of the top 10. And yeah, so it's been a journey since school. So I just love doing both. And now it's just developing and growing.
So Lucas and I've had the privilege of working with you a little bit. So what I'm about to ask you, I've already come to have a little bit of experience with. But how do you actually manage your time schedule? I mean, I know by now that you're quite a bit of a planner, and you've got your ducks in a row. But how do you organize your life as a performing artist to make sure you don't drop the ball?
Prioritizing things from important to less important.
And do you physically sit and make lists and write it down?
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I make sure that I go according to my gut feel as well. Like if you don't have peace or something to work, do something about it. Like, then I sort it out, have a plan of action.
And do you have like a specific time in the day or the week that you sit down and actually do the planning?
It's daily.
Oh,
daily also.
It's daily. Okay, whoa. It's daily.
When you think of what I mean, what I mean is when you think about it, write it down. And
I've been telling Lucas you should write it down.
We're learning. That's why we're doing this. So when you think about it, but that's good, you write it down.
Yes.
So you get it out of your head onto a phone or a piece of paper.
Yes, then I do it on my phone's calendar, jot it down there. And then I also try and, spend time also in the week marketing because I don't have an agent. So just touching base with different people and just reaching out, sending an email and so forth. So it's a constant, everything is about networking in the music industry.
So also I'm just going to quickly take us straight into the question. Okay, so you've got a at times fully booked performance schedule. You've got administration, you've got clients, you've got communication, you've got to answer emails, whatever. Do you make time specifically to practice violin? And how does that fit into a normal week? I'm not going to ask normal daily schedule, but let's say in a normal week schedule, how do you prioritize, for example, staying on top of your game?
So if I have to learn new repertoire, I preferably prepare that in advance so that I'm not, because I play everything off by memory, so I'm not stressed. And when I feel like playing, I play, then I really enjoy it. But I don't sometimes force myself because then I don't feel it's constructive. So I go very much on, I pick up my instrument when I want to and I enjoy it and I play it.
You just play for the people that are running past you, people in the neighborhood. It's fantastic. All right, fantastic.
Then I open the house's doors and I crank it up.
Okay, really? That's right.
You see. I want to get to the kind of the business side of it as well, and we don't have to speak specific numbers, but I'm just wondering when someone approaches you now for a wedding or a corporate, I know you play big corporates as well. I think Lamborghini was one of them. Stuff like that. How do you set a fee, or how do you determine a fee? Because I know that's something that many musicians struggle with. They get invited, people say, what do you charge? They're like, I don't know, what do you want? How do you determine that?
So I first determine all the hidden costs and the type of event. But I think many musicians, I find myself doing it quite often, sell ourselves short. So what the client thinks is they are paying for the person on stage, but in fact what they're actually paying for, which they don't realize, is all the rehearsal hours, the cost of the instruments, transportation, the costs of tuition to reach the level which you are at, and your expertise.
It's such an underrated concept. People think they book you for an hour or 2 hours, but they completely not take into account
They don't take
what it has
Backstage
taken you
into account. So
to be able to do that in
Yeah.
an hour. To be
Yeah.
able to play your 15 or your 10 songs in an hour. It's a lifetime of preparation, training, growing,
yes, for sure.
optimizing, mastering your instrument.
Yeah. So I call that backstage costs. Because they only see
like
the
that.
front stage. Yeah.
And for the sake of the listeners,
Backstage cost. What a beautiful concept.
Yeah, I've never heard of the word, but
came
is
to
that
mind.
something that you actively think about when, let's say, you discuss a fee with a client?
Yeah, so I usually go on tailor-made costs. So I love meeting the client beforehand, discussing everything what they would like, so I can get an idea and a feel, and I can bring also my product to the table which they are satisfied with. And then that's what I mentioned earlier, is building clientele and trust, so that your client is like completely happy with you. And then from there I work out a quote, and then depending on the type of function, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a corporate, to make it worth the while, including, like I mentioned, backstage costs.
Backstage costs.
Incredible.
So just going back to one of the questions I asked you earlier, I can understand now why people would book you again. Because when I listen to you, I can hear the value that you are adding to them, and you are kind of making it easy for them to understand what they're getting.
I always put the client first. Yes.
Put the client first. And
Yeah, because it's a service I'm giving. It's my expertise, it's my career, and it's the people relation. But also you cannot be walked over. So you have to have that business type of relation as well, knowing, okay, this is your boundary and you won't be pushed further than that, if I can put it that way.
I've got a question that's just popped up. What do you think is the most important element that you should master when working with clients, especially? I think something so personal like a wedding, and with so much expectation. It's one day only. What do you think is the one element that you need to have in place to make this a successful transaction?
Especially with wedding, that you are taking stress off the bride, that you have confidence. So the element of confidence is quite important, I find. If I tell a bride, listen, I've got everything under control, don't worry about, is this what you want? Great. And being able to make suggestions. So you're taking pressure off your client, if wedding speaking.
Incredible.
Taking the pressure off them.
Yeah. And then, of course, communication, clear communication. So no loopholes or anything like that.
Sure.
All right, so a bit off topic now. We scored a movie, Klankere 2, of which you're the featuring instrument, the violinist. I was just wondering, how is that kind of environment of film scoring different for you, maybe in terms of just an everyday gig, or maybe it wasn't?
It was so nice working with someone like Helmut and with yourself, who are so creative. So being in a solo environment, always playing alone, it's great. But now having this platform, the Klankere 2, and letting your creativity flow was very nice. And also the different elements of the whole movie, how thematic material gets developed, and foreshadowing each character before the character is even coming into the scene, and the emotions, and just the whole experience was great for me. So from a creative point of view, that's where the juices could flow. That's what I enjoyed.
Yeah, so maybe we can put a little link. I don't know if we're allowed yet, but if there's a link, Click it.
That's right. If there's a link, click it. No, what I could just say is do watch out for Klein Kurutu. It's a romantic comedy, so it's funny and it is deep, and I think it was
French horn.
French horn. No, and I think it's a beautiful South African production, and it was a privilege having you as the guest, the featured.
Thank you.
Musician. We were the other musicians. So.
That was great.
No, it was a big privilege for us. Any expert wisdom, any nugget of wisdom that you would like to leave the audience? Something that you've learned, something that you've grown to believe this is what you had to learn, and that you would really like to convey to the audience?
Is do something that you enjoy, that you can invest your time and your passion into. That's just from a personal point of view. I enjoy what I do, so I believe having that, I can achieve so much more. So your mental capacity, your mental health with what you do is very important.
Incredible.
Mental capacity, mental health, especially in this time that we're living in.
Yeah, and just the beauty of music must be a joy.
And
this
to
is why
serve.
we make music.
And to serve.
Yeah.
It goes just so beyond more than what we actually realize.
Yes. Lynette de Jager, it was so great speaking with you
Dankie.
today. Dankie vir jou.
Yeah,
And a great privilege to have had you on the podcast today. So listeners, you can, underneath this video, you'll find Lynette's links as well. Click on them and let's see if we can raise that 352 to 452.
Just put a 1 in front.
Also, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please like it, share it, subscribe. And we're looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for listening to The Bomb.
Of life are handed to you. You play what you get. Queen of hearts, no ace for the game. Not everyone's born the same. They say life is what you make of it. The fall of the dice is your fate. This is the time, take it up now. Set the fire alight.